Will as many of the opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say no? No.
The now infamous "don't be vague, go to Hague" sentiment haunts the ICC indictees and the country at large, a blunder that has since triggered a foray of activity as the former and current political bigwigs make frantic efforts to return the cases back home.
Yes, we can withdraw, and that should be now, immediately, and that should be a lesson not only to Kenyans, but for the whole of Africa and the oppressed part of the globe.
Let us not allow ourselves to sell ourselves wholesale to the international community, like people who have no dignity, people who cannot do their own things.
The ICC is a colonial imperialist court.
The earliest attempt was by a delegation by the then Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi, who implored the former ICC prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo to give Kenya more time to establish a local tribunal to try suspected masterminds of post-election violence.
The Grand Coalition government remains committed to a local judicial process and will accordingly take the necessary steps.
In December 2010, the 10th Parliament endorsed a motion urging the government to pull Kenya out of the Rome Statute. The principals in the then Grand Coalition government were then expected to put pen to paper to notify the Secretary General of the United Nations of Kenya's intention to withdraw from the Rome Statute. But coalition partner Prime Minister Raila Odinga dismissed Parliament's move as inconsequential.
Wale ambao walisema don't be vague, say Hague. Wakilipoona sasa Ocampo anakuja, sasa wanaanza kutetemeka. Wanasema hatutaki watu wetu wapelekwe Hague. Kenya is not a failed state. Watu tuwashaki hapa. Nasema basi. Lakini hiyo ndio tulikuwa tunataka kama serikali.
In the end, Parliament's resolution was never effected. The next big campaign was spearheaded by the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka in an intensive shuttle diplomacy that was largely dismissed as futile. Kalonzo's spirited campaign saw him visit 5 African nations in a bid to amass support to have the Kenyan issue slotted on the United Nations agenda, with the hope of securing an endorsement to have the Kenyan cases deferred for at least 1 year.
That's not how we see it. We see people who are perhaps threatening to cause disturbances if the ICC cases go ahead.
And during the lead-up to the March 4th elections, President Uhuru Kenyatta revived the campaign. He led a delegation of MPs to a meeting with Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete at State House Dar es Salaam, and then made a similar visit to the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and Salva Kiir of South Sudan. Right after winning the March 4th election, Deputy President William Ruto embarked on a fresh shuttle diplomacy to rally African Union member states to support a call to have cases facing him and the president, as well as former radio presenter Joshua Arap Sang, referred back to Kenya, a decision that sailed through during the AU Heads of State Summit in Addis Ababa.
The intention was to avoid any kind of impunity and so ill governance and the crime, but now the process has degenerated into some kind of race hunting.
It is not in the interest of the ICC, the Security Council, the African continent, and relationships between the three to see further humiliation of African people and their leaders by an unfair criminal justice system.
So much money, so much time spent. Question is, of what consequence will all these efforts be to the country? If crimes against humanity, a genocide or war crimes were to happen in Kenya, the United Nations Security Council could recommend to the ICC to investigate. The political class, however, believes that that could be dealt with through friendly nations with veto powers in the council. Meanwhile, prosecutor Fatou Bensouda will add 2 more witnesses to her list after one withdrew yesterday. The number of witnesses she will call to testify when the trial begins next week could now stand at 41. Sylvia Chebet, Citizen Live at 9.